Welcome to the Group Dentistry Now show, the voice of the DSO industry. Join us as we talk with industry leaders about their challenges, successes, and the future of group dentistry. With over 200 episodes and listeners in over 100 countries, we're proud to be ranked the #1 DSO podcast. For the latest DSO news, analysis, and events, and to subscribe to our DSO weekly e-newsletter, visit groupdentistrynow.com. We hope you enjoyed today's show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Group Dentistry Now show. I am Bill Newman, and as always, we appreciate you listening in. We have a couple hundred podcasts now in the library, and really just thrilled that we have such a dedicated audience, and it always pulls in the best guests. And we've got, for the first time to the show, actually two individuals that have been in the industry quite a while. Really glad to have a conversation with both of them. We have Rushi Ganmukhi with us. He is the CEO of Bola AI. Rushi, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Bill. Really excited to jump into the conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah, and this is going to be a fun conversation here. Topic of a lot of discussion is, technology moves so quickly. Just it's so hard to keep up with it. So you can get our audience up to speed with Bola AI and just what you're seeing with the rapid change in AI and technological advances, especially when it comes to DSOs and dental practices. We also have on Cassie Tallon. She is the CEO of Fractional Match. They are a fractional integrator, and she comes in as a COO. She comes in and handles marketing. She does all sorts of great things for companies in the dental space. Cassie, it's really great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's great to be here.
And Cassie and I have had the pleasure of spending a lot of time together at various meetings. Rushi and Cassie and I were talking about that before we started the record and just comparing notes on all the DSO meetings and all the opportunities out there. So this is going to be a great conversation. Cassie, why don't we start with you? Maybe a little bit about your background, your organization, and then why are you on a Bola AI podcast?
Well, I've had the pleasure the last few years of implementing Bola into clinics. I was looking for a solution when I was working for a pediatric office fractionally and came across Bola as this amazing solution to so many things that were broken within the practice. And since that time, I have had an opportunity over and over again as a fractional integrator to bring Bola into the office and help them with workflow. So my company is really just that. It's fractional integrations and operations and really getting into the heart of what the practice needs to be successful. So I go in and not just consult, but build out the tech stacks that I believe are going to, elevate the practice and move it in the right direction.
Yeah, and Cassie's perspective is pretty unique because she has worked on the practice and DSO side of things, as well as working for a lot of industry partners that work with DSOs and multi sites out there. So it's an awesome perspective, Cassie. Really interested in. It's great that we have you on to get your perspective. Rushi, would you mind giving the audience a little bit about your background? And it looks like you founded Bola AI back in 2017. I didn't even know AI existed in 2017, but apparently it did.
Exactly. Well, that's the perfect tee up, Bill. So yeah, my personal background is in natural language processing and AI. I was a researcher at MIT for a few years in that area. And that's truly my passion, is having computers understand language. And it's easier than it used to be, like you hinted at, Bill, as technology has come a long way. And yeah, jumped out of the research position, saw a clear need in the dental industry for language AI, workflow AI, all those good things around a dental office. So I kind of jumped in heads first. Our first product was a voice perio product. We've added restorative charting and a clinical notes product recently. And yeah, that's what we're all about, helping dental offices with their workflow and using AI to do it.
So let's talk about dental workflows and how Bola AI is really transforming that beyond. And you talked about, you have your voice powered perio charting, but can you talk a little bit about how Bola AI really is transforming workflows? We're so focused on efficiencies and same store growth. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and Cassie, you can definitely back me up here, but you look at your average dental appointment and dental staff, and you're basically looking at probably 90 minutes worth of work that you need to squeeze into 60 minutes. And so something's got to give, right? Either patient education falls, um, or yeah, a variety of other things just fall by the wayside just because they can't be done. And that's really the value of a product like ours or many of the other AI products out there, is to make your workflow more efficient so you can do the things you want to do. You can spend the time with the patient in the chair explaining their treatment. You can spend the time chatting with the patient because they're your customer and you want to maintain them and you want to learn about their life and their family. And so that's really the whole goal of the product, is to give you that time back so that you can provide value, so that you can do the things you love, so that you can do the things you learned in dental school or hygiene school. And that's really what we're all about.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add to that, there has been such a such a lack of quality notation and accuracy of what happened chairside that, I get very concerned for the doctor's licensure and, to Rushi's point, sometimes up to 90 minutes discussing health history and oral hygiene habits and next steps for care. And I love this concept of allowing yourself to be present with the patient while capturing what you need, not just teeing up the visit for success with, the pre-diagnostic of perio and restorative charting, but also the entire visit being captured. So it really is not just a win for the practice, but also the patient, because you are more engaged chairside and not trying to capture, pieces and parts along the way.
We talk a little bit about the time saving benefits. So like how is Bola AI saving time? And it's not just for the dentist, right? It's time saving for the staff as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's one of the first things that I do when I go into a clinic is I'm doing a P&L analysis and also evaluating payroll overages. Where are you seeing, areas within the clinic that are not operating lean? And so, can share more on this as well. But from my perspective, I saw team members staying up to 2 hours later at the end of the day and conducting with, a DSO that I just worked with, that, conducting a review to say your team is actually very dissatisfied with the fact that they have to stay those 2 extra hours. So it's not even about them making more money and being excited about that. They want to get home to their family and their kids. And so for me, it's removing that end of day, um, backlog of notes that also, by the way, are on a notepad shorthand and highly inaccurate when they're entered 5 hours later and the patient, was seen at 8 a.m. or whatever it was, because they're missing so many of the core details.
Yeah, that's
100%.
go ahead, Rishi.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, yeah, Cassie said is 100% true, and that's exactly it, Bill. That you look at our perio charting solution, and we help, right? We help hygienists not have to chart by themselves or not have to chart and pull in a dental assistant, the front office. And so you're saving, we're seeing like 20, 30 minutes a day per hygienist just from the voice perio charting solution. Then you start to add in the restorative charting when they're going through your history and the treatment planning, and that time is only increasing. Now, the perio and the restorative are typically done, yes, when the patient's in the room, right? You have to record it then. So those are clear areas that you can reduce bloat. But also the clinical notes, which is, I think, every single dentist we've talked to, Cassie, you can back me up here, has said that their clinical notes is the worst part of their day.
Mhm.
Uh, they're staying late. Their staff is staying late. they're exactly what you said, Cassie. They're jotting it down shorthand on a little Post-it note that stays on the computer, and then at some point when they have a second, they're putting that data into the practice management system. And so you're saving them that immediate time, taking the clinical notes while the patient's present or right after they leave, kind of topping it up with information. So you're saving that kind of initial time right there with the patient, but you're also saving that follow-up time of trying to remember what data was there, trying to remember exactly what they agreed to, what procedures, et cetera. And that follow-up with the front office as well when they're submitting the insurance claim. All of that kind of added compounded follow-up then is gone because it's captured right there and then. Patients in the chair, it is the most accurate record you could have.
So it's really not just time savings. You both touched on it a couple of times. It's also the accuracy factor, and that's one of the larger challenges is insurance denials in dentistry. So maybe talk a little bit more about that. I mean, how does Bola AI help when it comes to insurance reimbursement and some of the denials of claims?
Yeah, I'm seeing a ton of this right now. I mean, to the point that, the doctors are being told by the team that the rejections are because insurance is being finicky or, you know, um, they're just, being greedy and not approving the claim. I would argue it's quite the opposite. It is a deficiency within the team for accuracy on the front end to get it right. And so I literally just saw this in a series of clinics that I was in Georgia this last week, but the team is not completing the clinical note. The clinical note is not being locked and saved, and then an insurance billing coordinator is going in and reading whatever was charged out to the physical ledger and adjusting the note so that it will go to insurance. That person is non-clinical, they were not chairside, they do not know what was administered to the patient, and that is highly problematic for a doctor and their licensure. So to get it right on the front end for insurance to pay and support those claims is everything. We're seeing more and more that perio charting is required for most treatment because they want to do is the insurance carrier wants to ensure that there is longevity to treatment, right? That you're not placing a crown on a tooth that has severe periodontal disease. So there are significant reasons behind those insurance claims being paid. And if the team will get it right on the front end with BOLA, it increases infinitely the ability for those claims to be submitted with accuracy. And I hear teams all the time say, we just didn't do perio charting because I didn't have another warm body that could sit with a keyboard chair side. And it's like, we have evolved so much in dentistry with AI. If people will utilize it, that BOLA is giving them the tools they need to not have to wait for that person to come in and be chairside, to not have to go to those shorthand notes and try to get accuracy to what took place. So it really is very transformative with insurance.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is this something that is common still? I mean, are AI driven charting? You think about this, and Rushi's been doing this now since 2017. I mean, what's the adoption been like? Is it 10%, 20%? Do we have an idea of how many practices are actually doing it the old fashioned way and with the issues with errors and not having the staff to do it, or is this something that's becoming more and more commonplace?
Yeah, so it's definitely becoming more and more commonplace, Bill. And I think the when we started out, AI was a new field here in dentistry, and I think because of that, there was a lot of friction, right? People kind of exploring it, interested in it, understood that it was the future, but maybe not ready for it yet. And I actually think in the last, let's say, 3 years, with all the stuff going on in the wider market, of course, ChatGPT, I think Microsoft releasing Copilot as well, which is something a lot of dental offices use for various tasks. I think the AI has become much more approachable and much more oh, we use it in, I use it at home to help me write emails, let's say. I should be using it at work too in dentistry. And so because of that, the adoption has picked up significantly in the last 3 years. And I only see that trend continuing. I think it's going to be a snowball effect. And I think one day that this will be in every single dental office.
Yeah, I think too there's interaction happening at a medical level. People are going, dentists even I've talked to some that are going in for medical care, and immediately AI is being turned on for notation of their chart. And I think that adoption is increasing because it's everywhere and they're starting to see, just how much it's removing those barriers that were there. And, for a while, I think it's more prevalent now that we're seeing this, but for a while, I don't think that there was a correlation between missing notation and perio charts to the need for AI. I think there was just an assumption that insurance was being finicky. And I think that as more have investigated the RCM process, they've realized, hey, we have a huge deficiency here that is solved with AI. Like we can fix this. So, from my perspective, Bill, is I share Bola when I'm working with a clinic, they immediately do the demo and sign on. Like I have never once recommended over the last 2 years Bola and not had a practice sign on. Like they see it, they understand it, they're like, light bulb moment, and then they sign on for it.
So a lot don't even realize that, there's this option out there, and they're either
Mhm.
blaming insurance or they're thinking that they need um, more staff to handle this, or it's just gonna, it's just gonna take more time out of their day. But what about adoption? So somebody, you Cassie, you're having this conversation with practice, and you show them Bola AI, and they're like, "Yep, sign us up." How easy is it to implement Bola AI into a new practice that hasn't used this type of solution before?
It's very easy if you include some steps that make them have to use it. So when I'm building a workflow with a team, I just had a conversation with a clinic in West Virginia about Bola yesterday via email. The office manager was gearing up for the week. They just signed on and she's like, "Hey, how am I going to get this to stick chairside?" And I wrote her back and I said, "We're going to build an operational workflow, but I want you to keep in mind one thing. If the team sees the light bulb moment in transfer to the patient, for instance, once the note is completed, they can print and hand to the patient everything that was just shared. So it acts as, or they can even email it to their email, but it can act as a second form of, sharing what took place chairside and then building into that as well what they're already familiar with. So doc already has a note template usually. I've not been in a practice really where a doctor doesn't already have kind of a protocol set of what he wants documented. So Bola allows you to upload the doctor's version of the note. So for consistency's sake, the team isn't learning something new, they're utilizing existing in a new way. And that really is to me, it creates a far greater adoption because they're not having to learn, you know, a a hefty new system. They're just turning on a button to capture what they already write. So it's a very easy adoption.
Rushi, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And one of the big things we did, Bill, while building this product was we put a real premium on not changing a dental office's workflow, not introducing all of these crazy things to solve a problem they do have today, but not introducing like a massive overhead of implementation and heavy product for them to learn. So that's definitely one thing we really take pride in is the ease of use, getting people. Cassie said it exactly right. As soon as um, offices start using it, right? You just see that usage go up, and it's that positive cycle. They use it, they see that aha moment, they understand how it fits into their workflow. We build it in such a way that they can use a lot of the things they have already today, their clinical notes templates, for example. And yeah, usage then is up and to the right.
And I would also add to that, I think we forget the age and the demographic of the dental assistant today, right? They're a younger they're a younger audience that's coming into the clinic and working there. And one of the skill sets that is never discussed, like nobody even talks about this as a skill set, they're expected to type a significant amount of typing. And they are capable of texting on a cell phone, but most of these people, most of these dental assistants don't even have a computer. They don't type on keyboards. So for them to get Bola and be able to have auto notation of what they're saying, it changes their entire world because they already aren't, able to type. And, I all the time will see dental assistants that are pushing one finger at a time because they're following the pattern of text. That's not a negative on dental assistants. It's just to say in the evolution of our world, just like kids aren't doing cursive anymore, younger generations are not typing. So it makes sense to alleviate that burden because the doctor doesn't even have familiarity, or the DSO, with the fact that that person isn't able to type. I've had dental assistants that bring in a hygienist, a much higher paid team member, to type their notes because they are not able to type in the right way. Like we're solving something that at its core I think is a bigger issue than we know or realize, and it's making a very big impact in the practice, one in a very positive way that they immediately adopt to because it's solving a problem.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of it is it's nothing to do with the individual's intelligence. It's so some of it's generational,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
it just
yeah,
make go
they're
ahead, Cassie.
brilliant. Yeah, I was gonna just add they're brilliant individuals. It's just in the evolution of our culture, they text. Like, they don't use a keyboard. So we forget that, and we're asking them to go back to an old method that, you and I may type all the time, and that's no big deal. We never even thought about it, but it's a huge deficiency with the younger population of not knowing how to do that, and they're brilliant individuals. It's just a skill set they don't have.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating, and I think as the AI gets better, with voice in particular, it makes a lot more sense, to use something like this, and of course, it's a lot even the fastest person typing is not gonna be as fast as and as accurate as, AI and voice because we make mistakes, even the best typists, right,
Mhm.
when we're typing, so I think this is you could kind of going back to some of the issues of, inaccuracies. I think we talked about that, discussed that at the beginning when it comes to insurance denials, but I mean, there's also these evolving documentation requirements. So you've got these challenges when it comes to potential compliance and legal risks. Can we talk a little bit about how Bola AI can help there?
Yeah, so Bill, this is something I think Cassie and I, while we were developing the product, Cassie brought this up with me and introduced me to this concept. So, Cassie, I'm going to let you talk about this because you are the professional in this area.
Yeah, I just wanna say first and foremost, I worked with a practice that they were being, full audited by, the state, and the reason is they had concerns over them being, um, overcharging for the consult, and what was the patient actually getting out of the consult. So in analysis of the consult, as we pulled those clinical notations, here there was an exorbitant charge for this, highly revered doctor to do a consult with very little produced clinically in the notation. And we had to fight hard for there to be an understanding of why that charge was what it was for that consult. But from a legal standpoint alone, these doctors are missing that in the court of law, if, for instance, something happens chairside and that patient claims negligence of any kind, if that documentation in an audit trail shows that it was adjusted multiple times over a period of months or even years, that does not hold up well in court. Those notes should be locking once the doctor completes what took place chairside and not opened again. You can add an addendum, but those notes should be locked and sealed and secured for the doctor. And so where Bola comes in, and I love this because when the doctor has that light bulb moment of recognition, it's not just capturing notation in the template form of what, what treatment is recommended or what was noted with the health history, the doctor may go on for a period of time and talk about bad oral health habits and what has led to this point, and also share, we're going to go ahead and do this treatment, but this is the rate of that treatment actually holding up. If you, chew ice or eat taffy, this is going to actually cause that to come out again. And so the doctor gives quite a bit of information share side that from even just a licensure perspective is to protect him and protect the patient. And so accuracy of notation is everything. It's missing in our industry. Team members are adjusting doctor notes instead of adding an addendum, and they're adjusting it for days later. And like I said, if you weren't chairside to know the number of carpules administered, or you weren't chairside to know what the doctor discussed fully, it's highly unlikely that sitting in a billing office, you would know what to add to that note to make it accurate. So doctors' protection of licensure is everything. I believe when I go in and work in these clinics, it's my number one priority is to say you worked so hard to be in this position and have this, this level of care for patients in order to maintain it. Why would you not elevate standard of care with BOLA so that you have safety in what was communicated and the patient has clarity in what you said? So it really and truly is a safeguard for that dentist.
We have quite a few emerging dental groups and larger DSOs that listen to this podcast. One of the big challenges that I see is companies that have solutions but are not scalable. So let's talk about how Bola AI can be scaled across, whether it's an emerging group with 10 locations or somebody larger that might have, 600 locations, and any data on the financial impact Bola AI would have on a larger organization.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that, Bill. So we did, I believe, 2 years ago, we did a 6-month case study with a top 3 DSO in the United States. Brought in a McKinsey analyst as well to look at the data and really see what the revenue impact and what the time impact of Bola AI was. And really what we found, so the first thing was implementation. The offices who got up and running fast, and by fast I mean in 10 days, saw tremendous success, tremendous outcomes in terms of time and revenue generated. So number one, as I mentioned before, we like the product to be easy to use. We want it to be as plug and play as possible to your current workflow. And yes, so those offices who got up and running saw tremendous success. Then the second benefit we usually saw in those offices was the time savings. Exactly what we're talking about right now, the efficiency, the time savings. We found around 20 to 30 minutes per hygienist per day were saved. And this was only on the perio charting product. And they were putting that time back into doing intraoral scans, patient education, all of the things that drive further revenue for an organization. And then, the final effect we found was that actually a lot of hygienists were putting that time back into charting and charting comprehensively. So again, perio specifically, you look at the US population, and I think it's somewhere around 40% of the US adult population over 30 years old has some form of periodontal disease. So if you are doing perio charts regularly and thoroughly, you will be diagnosing disease. And that's exactly what we found is an increase in diagnosed disease, an increase in case acceptance, and an increase in treated disease as well. And so only on that increase in treated disease, we found a 12x return on investment for this group, which was pretty significant just from improving how thoroughly and quickly they can do perio charting.
Wow. 12x. That's great. Let me ask one more question, kind of tag this on. emerging groups, DSOs love their analytics. So what type of data can be pulled by the top code to see what's going on at the practice level, and at the regional level? What kind of information and what kind do you see being gathered? What seems to be the most beneficial?
Yes. So another great question, and very true. The DSOs do love that transparency of what's going on, how is the product being used, and what is that benefit, right? So we see a lot of groups want number one kind of usage. So let's say perio charting again, for example. So what percent of perio charts are you done using Bola AI? How quickly are those charts done? How comprehensively are they done? Are they filling out bleeding points, furcation, mobility, or are they just putting 232 on every single chart and just whipping through it? So like the comprehensiveness and the number of charts that each of their practices and hygienists are doing is a massive benefit for them, because then they can also see additional issues and address those additional issues. We also provide, again, perio is a great example of this. We provide how many pocket depths, let's say, are above 5 millimeters in a quadrant of the mouth, so that they can know that that could have been diagnosed as a scaling and root planing treatment. And so they can see how many treatments could have been planned versus how many were not. And that gives them real financial clarity and a real direction on where to improve in their practices.
So one of the other questions that's going to come up inevitably is integration. So how well does it integrate with EHR, my practice management system, my practice management software, and the billing systems? And there are quite a few PMSs out there and billing systems. You talk a little bit about the integration of Bola AI.
Yes, definitely, and that's somewhere we take great pride in, Bill. Just to my previous point of making it easy to use and making it as plug and play as possible, we have partnered with all major practice management systems, and so have deep integrations into most of by population the practice management systems. Again, it's incredibly important, because the practice management system is where all the data goes, where the team is spending a big portion of their day. And so we want to ensure that it works flawlessly with those systems.
That's great. As we try and wrap things up here now, I always like a question, give us a little bit of a peek into the future of technology and what we should expect in the industry. So if you take a look at, 5, 10 years out, where do you both see AI powered documentation headed? And just kind of curious, where we are now. There's going to be more adoption, that's obvious, but that product is going to evolve as well. So maybe Rushi and then Cassie, you can finish up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to look back over the last 5 years and then see in the next 5 to 10 years where this is all evolving across the whole industry. I think it's going to be tremendous for everyone involved. But yeah, for us, the game plan has always been we started with the perio charting. We added on now restorative charting and our AI scribe, our clinical notes product. So we're touching 3 of the major points in a dental office visit. Now, if we're looking at what's coming up in the future, we're going to make those 3 products into a more comprehensive suite that allows you to do way more. And the focus is going to be less around specifically, maybe less around voice, but more around the entire workflow. Each office does a new patient exam slightly different. They do a recall exam slightly different. They do procedures slightly different. And that's one of the big powers of AI, is that personalization and that touch. And so we're really excited to look at, okay, how can we comprehensively help a dental office's workflow, and specifically that dental office's workflow? to make it even better, to provide more data, to make it more efficient, to make it more accurate. And that's really where we're going. And as part of it, of course, the patient education piece will get better. I know Cassie touched on a few points in our product that provide clinical reports for the patient, as well as the insurance side of things. Documentation goes hand in hand with insurance in a dental office. And so if you're optimizing one, the other one's going to be better as well. And so, yeah, that's what I'm really excited for in the next few years.
That sounds great, and I'm assuming, and Cassie, maybe you can, as you finish this question up, I'm assuming that this is going to be a solution that is going to be at some point soon expected in the office, where if you don't have this, your staff is going to be, questioning the forward, how forward thinking, how progressive is this office?
Yeah, I think it's gonna become a clinical standard, like I said, not just for accuracy chairside for the patient and for the doctor, but also for, every aspect of billing and protection of the doctor. And so I think we're gonna continue to see an evolution of it. I think that we will continue to see adoption rise in the coming year to where it does become just a standardization. It is one aspect, I've had people say, is it just one more tool to add to your toolkit in the dental office? And it really isn't. It's the main tool you should be adding for accuracy. And I think we're going to see an evolution of that from the standpoint that notes can be searched and tee up historical reference points for the doctor in a way that prepares them chairside better than ever before. One of the greatest issues currently is the doctor comes in chairside and is trying to gain historicals on what the patient's been in for before, and what was discussed. And right now the doctor has to go to the ledger and see what was billed out under CDT codes to say, okay, yeah, this is what we did before. But how wonderful will it be with AI when we can actually search and tee up historicals of notation and frequency of type of visit, or, things discussed redundantly that still haven't changed in terms of the patient's oral habits. They give us this greater view, greater vantage point of the clinical aspect of the patient's care. So, the doctor that I went and saw about 2 weeks ago that was not in dentistry, but in, healthcare, I love what she said to me before she turned on AI for notation. She said, "I'm getting ready to turn on notation because my goal in this visit is to not lose sight of any of the things that you want me to know about your health, and for you not to lose sight of any of the things I want you to know about your health." And it was just simple. It was as simple as that. And when the visit was over, I received a printout of what was recommended and also what I referenced. So I felt like she listened to me better. So I think this will ultimately become standard of care. And I look forward to that because I look at how many times we've missed things. I had a doctor 2 weeks ago tell me that he wasn't able to look it back on his notes because there was missing notation, and recommended a partial that he already completed that wasn't billed out to the ledger, and felt horrible because he had forgotten that that was done on that patient and recommended again. And this is not abnormal to see this happen. And what happens in that process is the doctor loses trust with the patient, and ultimately they find a new provider. So I look forward to Bola becoming the mainstay standard for dental. And adaptation means we just have this as a safeguard for the patient and for the practice.
Thank you, Cassie. I think we're at the point where if somebody is interested, somebody listening is interested in finding out more about Bola, they'll want to make sure they go to the Bola.ai website. So it's Bola.ai. And if you do /demo, you'll be able to sign up for a demo, but it's BOLA.ai. Cassie, if people want to get in touch with you directly, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can go to thefractionalmatch.com and just fill out a contact us form. And then from there, they'll get an opportunity to schedule a meeting. A lot of what I do is recommending tools like Bola in the office and then coming in and helping with the integration plan.
Excellent. And Rushi, if people want to find out more about Bola AI, besides going to the website and getting the demo, they want to contact you directly, what's the best way to do that?
Oh yeah, reach out. Websites, of course, great, but you can also reach out to sales@bola.ai. That's a great way to reach me.
Excellent. Sales@bola.ai. And we'll drop the email addresses and the websites in the show notes. Thank you, Cassie and Rushi. Really, really great conversation. A lot of fun. I mean, technology is advancing so quickly, and these are some. It's I think one of the most exciting times to be in the dental industry and to have options like Bola AI. Really, options that didn't exist even till recently. Although you've had this since 2017, I think people are just starting to get comfortable with AI solutions now, and I think we're going to just see the adoption level increase very, very quickly.
Agree. The future's bright in this area, and it's going to be fun to watch it grow over the next few years.
Well, thank you both for being on, and thanks everybody for listening in. Until next time, I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Group Dentistry Now Show.
Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date on the latest DSO news, insights, and events. Also, subscribe to our DSO weekly e-newsletter at groupdentistrynow.com.